Overall, this record is another evolution of Avenged Sevenfold.
This album is dark and heavy, but fun. It's going back to classic heavy metal.
Before we start writing, we start taking in our influences and start really figuring out what we want to accomplish.
We started looking at all of our really early influences. I mean, everyone from Zeppelin to Sabbath to UFO, and seeing how those bands influence bands like Metallica and AC/DC and Maiden.
A large portion of this record is based on feel.
Every riff had to go through the, is it classic or not? Can you imagine hearing this in 20, 30 years?
A lot of those things kind of get swept under the rug, you know, when you have 5-part harmonies and 3 types of duels and a solo going on.
We're not overplaying anything. We're not trying to meander into, you know, showing off parts. We really wanted to do a solid, heavy rock record.
Felt like we've been to war and back on this one.
I did tell Brian when we're done with this record I wanted to be 100% creatively drained. I remember there was times where we had 3 weeks of writing every single day and not one riff would come.
Definitely a different approach, very much out of our wheelhouse.
And then we'd have a song where we'd be 90% done and that extra 10% took 2 weeks.
And if that 10% didn't come, we scrapped the whole song. You know, we had to because it wasn't flowing right yet.
When the album's done, there's no going back and changing things after the fact. It's laid down, and when you're a band like us that does take time and only gets to put out as many albums as you can during your lifetime, everyone's as important or more important than the next.
We wanted this record to be great from front to back and flow all the way through.
And to do something like that, still make it Avenged and feel successful at that, and finally it comes to fruition, it's a pretty unbelievable feeling.
With Aaron, the moment that I saw him in the very first audition, I knew he had something really, really special about him.
To commit to Aaron, we needed to realize the scope of his potential. In order to do that, we had to get in the studio with him.
You know, Aaron was a little apprehensive at first because obviously he's stepping into the shoes of Rev and Mike Portnoy now. The reality is we wrote a record, and what he did on this record was what we needed him to do on this record.
Being showy and playing fast just for the sake of doing so isn't nearly as impactful as being powerful, and these songs demand powerful drumming, and he was the right man for the job.
Every now and then I would try and throw in, like, you know, like a Jimmy fill or like something a little bit more elaborate, something crazy, something like, you know, over the top, and it was like, no, like that's not what we're going for.
We needed him to be just this backbone that was just catchy and ballsy and slamming the out of the drums. And he did it.
When I listen to music, I visualize it. I see what's happening on stage. And with certain songs on this album, I'm so excited to bring them to a live setting. They demand it.
In the touring cycle that we got coming up, there's still some places in the world that we haven't been.
It's always fun to expand and see the crowds get bigger. Obviously, the familiar faces really keep us going, but when you're pleasantly surprised by your growth and expansion, there's nothing better.
Anywhere there's Avenged Sevenfold fans, I want to seek them out and let them experience something that other people have been able to do.
With the way the internet is, we have a lot of fans out there that are in countries and places that we don't necessarily have label support or anything like that. So once again, we're going to make a conscious effort to get out to those places.
It'd be fun to play in Israel, it'd be fun to play in the Middle East, deeper into Southeast Asia, deeper into South America, Eastern Europe. We're going to be there as soon as possible.
I mean, if we play 1,000 shows on this touring cycle, it wouldn't be enough as far as I'm concerned.
It'd be great to get all those fans in all those places that we haven't been.
And we're very fortunate and very blessed to have that.
So hang in there.
With Avenged Sevenfold songs, we love huge orchestrations, and we love really going above and beyond when it comes to the instruments we use in a song, the way it makes you feel.
We always want it to be our vision, and we listen to that type of stuff. We all listen to a lot of classical music and, you know, appreciate film scoring.
We still have that cinematic piece of Avenged Sevenfold that we've had in the past, and you know, we never want to abandon that.
It's all about creating that chaos atmosphere. We wanted to write all the parts, which we've always done, but this time it was more about brass and violence. You know, it was all about using violent instruments in a classical influence.
Using David Campbell, who's responsible for a lot of great orchestrations on huge albums throughout many, many years.
He was able to take our ideas and really improve upon them and make them sound amazing.
Very, very talented guy and can realize one's dream very easily.
I think he was excited that he was working on something that was a little more classically influenced.
I think Nightmare was a great learning process for all of us.
Doing Nightmare was very, very difficult. I guarantee it's going to be the hardest record we ever had to make.
But I don't really know how to say this right, so I'll just say it. The positive part of that, to have to deal with the negative part of that, was that it brought us all together.
With the fans actually asking us to continue and having all that support, getting back out on the road, it really felt good again.
The emotional healing process has happened, you know, and now we're back and we wanted to start making some badass riffs, badass rock music, and rock it out on this one.
With Nightmare, I'm so proud of that album, and we captured something the other bands will never be able to capture. And I hope no one has to ever go through what we did in order to capture that. But we did. It's done. We were able to send Jimmy off with a masterpiece album that he'd helped so much with. And this album's our chance to just go back to making music for the love of doing so.